Father, what is my purpose?
Sorry, I don't think you're wet enough. Go away. Ooh, that's much better!
Ladies, gentlemen, and Monsties of all ages, I am extremely happy to be able to tell you that we have been given some very early access to mess around and play through Monster Hunter Stories 3 Twisted Reflection. Thanks to the fine folks over at Capcom for hooking us up here. And before we get into all this stuff, I want to mention that Josh and I have been recording our full Pro and Noob series, the playthrough of the game itself. All of our first impressions are preserved in that, and you will get to experience them alongside us when the game fully releases. But for now, we have permission to show you a new section of the game beyond what was in the demo that released last week. We'll be doing this across a few separate videos so we can sort of dive into different topics that I want to talk about and different things I want to show you, and so I can sort of separate it into less spoilery stuff and more spoilery stuff later on. But none of these videos will have any direct story spoilers of any kind, of course. The closest thing might be an occasional fight that happens to be a part of a story quest, or maybe a line of dialogue or two from a cutscene without context, just to show you some voice acting that I enjoy. I've said today in the first of our early videos on this game, I simply want to go over two main things. My first impressions from the section of the game that we are allowed to talk about right now, which I would say is about 25 hours of gameplay that we spent in it from start to the end, as we really just engaged with as much of the side content and exploration as possible. We collected all the Monsties, messed with habitat restoration a whole bunch of times, and just really experienced as much as we possibly could. And I'll also go over all new stuff of note within the scope of what I'm allowed to talk about too during these videos. But that said, after playing through that chunk of the game with Josh, I then played through most of the same stuff back again on my own, partially so I could show you these awesome things I want to without spoiling our actual main playthrough run for when that begins, but also just because I adore this game. So cat out of the bag there as far as my overall impressions. I think that Stories 3 is incredible. If you liked either of the previous Monster Hunter Stories games in the past, this one is pretty much just pure improvement in every category. If you weren't a fan of the previous games in this series, I would still recommend at least checking out the trial version of the game that is currently out, the demo that is available, because it has evolved so much since even the second game, which itself was a massive improvement from the first Stories game. In essence, this is a game set within the Monster Hunter universe with a major focus on the story itself and the journey. Instead of being hunters who hunt monsters, you are riders who build bonds with baby Monsties straight from the egg, train them up, and fight alongside them. No knowledge of previous games is required to enjoy the story in Stories 3, and from what I have experienced so far, the story is fantastic. It is definitely a good bit more mature than the story of the first two games in this series, while still managing to keep that same charming humor as well. The Rangers, your main companions, are absolutely incredible. I've decided that Ogden is my grandfather, and Thea is my adopted daughter as far as I'm concerned as well. These characters are all just so extremely lovable, and even the ones that are less outwardly kooky and wacky still have their own personality quirks and their backstory to explore to get you as attached to them as possible as you are playing through this game. The voice acting in this game, both from the player character, which is fully voiced, and from the companions, the Rangers, or even other notable NPCs around the world, has all been extremely solid too, with there being emotional moments along the way that have real impact and expressiveness conveyed through the characters, but also moments where they can bring a lot of levity purely from the combination of the chosen animations and the voice acting done alongside them.
We're waiting for a never-before-seen monster. I'm talking the rarest of the rare.
Well, I didn't know there were monsters you hadn't heard of.
Oh, wipe that grin off your face. I still got plenty of learning to do.
It's like he's a totally different Poogie. He's kinda cute.
It's like he's saying, baked, grilled, or fried as a cutlet, I'm yours. He's not saying that. Nobody's eating my sweet porker.
The environments themselves are beautiful, and the habitat restoration system makes it feel like the world is more alive than it has ever been in the Stories series up to this point, with you basically adjusting the actual food chain of each little slice of a region. I love the verticality of the world as well. It's way more varied and interesting than the previous Stories games, and that verticality and the messiness of the terrain, honestly, makes it feel more like a real-world location and less like something that was created purely purely for the sake of efficient level design in a video game. The endemic life around the game help with that as well, and they aren't just there for fun because they also serve mechanical purposes. The main one being that they can tell you when invasive monsters are nearby, and invasive monsters are one of the things that I just want to stay as quiet about as possible because they are quite possibly my favorite part of the game as of this point, but they are also not things that are just stat checks. I won't say too much about various ones because I think they absolutely should be properly experienced for yourself, but they get way more interesting and complex than the one that you had in the demo for the game. And essentially, they serve as little investigative puzzles. They feel like you're performing ecological research and then using the power of your own brain to solve a problem that is presented to you. And that problem is the invasive monster itself. A lot of fights in these stories games revolve around just pure stat checking things or like the strategy of using the right moves in the right order and stuff like that. Invasive monsters feel like a very intentional departure from that concept to create something that I think is very special, very unique, and honestly just so cool. I've got one going on screen right now. I'm not going to be showing any of the in-game hints or tips to explain why I'm doing the things that I'm doing to do the fight, but this is what they're like, and again, this is one of my favorite parts of the game. Aside from invasive monsters, which are again a really cool, unique part, another unique monster variation are the feral monsters. The feral monsters are like stat-boosted variations of a monster. They tend to have an element swap compared to the standard monster, and they have one crystallized body part that you have to destroy to weaken their most powerful attacks, which often can and will one-shot your entire party if they go off at full power. These feel like unique variations on the existing regular monster fights. They still use the same mechanics for the most part and such, but they offer a refreshing twist, and they work a bit differently for each feral monster from one to the next for the most part too. If you want to know what's going on in the areas available in the demo for this game, we do already have a lot of that in our demo coverage videos if you want to check those out in full detail, but some of the stuff in the demo area I actually can't even talk about today, so if you want to know about the super early sections of the game, I recommend checking those out. But now, I'm going to be starting to get into stuff that happens after that point properly, just as a warning that there will be properly new information going on from this point forward. First up, rite of channeling is in the game again, of course, which is the system that you use to move genes around from one Monstie to another within the goal of making your main party of monsters as strong as possible. But the way that rite of channeling functions in Stories 3 is so much better than any prior version of the system. The reasons are quite simple to explain, despite it being such a big impact on the system as a whole. And first, when you move a gene from one Monstie to another, you don't lose either of the Monsties, you keep both. This means you could take every single gene out of a Monstie to put it into others if you really wanted to. As well, it means that you can preserve a gene that you might want to save for later, even if you don't want it on the Monstie that currently has it, and you won't lose either Monstie. You can freely move around the genes within the slots of a Monstie to create bingos super easily, and you can search for genes on a list without having to check which Monstie has them. Beyond that, you can also make this list show genes that you do not currently have on any of your Monsties, which then also has a feature that lets you show what Monsties can get those genes and the related requirements to do so. So basically, it has never been easier, more convenient, or more straightforward to actually create builds for your Monsties. As for the riders ourselves, the player characters, the weapons are mechanically more interesting than they have been in the past just as a base, and the skill system on top of that has a lot more depth too. Not only are there a lot more skills, like a lot of these switch skills and stuff like that from Rise and Sunbreak have been incorporated into weapon movesets in the game, and most of the skills also have multiple variations of them that adjust the exact results of using it. A couple early examples for Hammer easily to show here: Sweet Spot costs 20 stamina, has 50 power, and applies 60 Wyvernfell gauge damage on hit. Sweet Spot Blunt is a variation that still has 20 stamina cost, but it has 40 power, which is 10 less than the standard version, but 75 Wyvernfell gauge damage, which is notably more than the standard version. So this is a variation of the skill that does less damage, but applies more gauge breakage, more stagger, essentially. There are a number of other skill varieties as well, one that makes them cost more stamina to do more damage, or less stamina but less power as well, things like that, and much more. And it makes these skills much more unique than just having something like 20 weapons with the exact same skills on them and then just being stat differences. This leaves a lot of room for build creation in the long run, even from the player side of things. Then we should talk about the Monsties themselves, and oh my god, I love the monster and Monstie selection in this game so much so far. We've talked about what is in Azuria previously, of course, but today the main new area I'm allowed to show you is called Canalta Timberland. It is essentially of similar size to Azuria itself. This area has a much more wild feeling to it, and to put it simply, this is essentially the Monster Hunter Rise zone. By that, what I mean specifically is that there is a ton of monsters from Monster Hunter Rise and even Sunbreak in this area as well that you can find around here. I'll show some on screen as we're going through things that I want to talk about, but I'll leave the full roundup of every Monstie in this area for a later video that will be a bit more directly made to just explore all of the new things. Because, while I'm still showing some new stuff today, of course, I know that some people just want to be teased a little bit without being teased the whole way. So if you want the whole Poogie, you'll want to check out our follow-up vids over the next couple of days. Beyond that, the kinship attacks in this game are absolutely incredible. The ones for new monsters I absolutely adore, with some of them being my new favorites in the whole series. They are that good. But even beyond that, they've done slight changes or enhancements to kinship attacks for Monsties that were in the previous games too. For example, here's Yonkut Ku as an example. For example, here's Yonkut Ku. In Monster Hunter Stories 2, he would run up a little bit, stop to eat Khonshu, he'd get the fun pink glow around him showing that he enjoyed them, and then he'd spit them all up as fireballs. In Stories 3, Yonkut Ku eats the Khonshu while he is actively still running towards his target, giving a lot more of a feeling of motion and active movement. There's no pink glow, which I do find a bit sad as someone who's just a fan of the color pink, but then he fires them all out while, again, still moving the entire time. And the result is it just feels way more active of an animation, way more like actual combat is happening. Some people will probably prefer the old one, some people will prefer the new one, but the big point that I wanted to make here is simply that they are different. They didn't just rehash the same animations we had before in higher graphical quality, they put in the effort to remake them and make changes where they thought appropriate. The Monsterpedia has gotten a massive upgrade in its function too, its visual quality, and I'm just really enjoying not only the fact that you can get loads of ecological information on things by finding their tracks around the open world, but also like you can check what each monster looks like in different elemental variations to help you make your choice of what habitat you want to restore your new friends to before you fully commit to it, which is a lovely quality of life decision, especially combined with being able to see the egg skills that you haven't gotten yet from the Rite of Channeling menu, and this really helps you work out habitat restoration before even having to release any of the monsters to each environment. And with those things put together, you just have a lot of knowledge that you can use to your advantage when creating your actual party of Monsties. Similar note, I love how much information you are given in combat too. There is a status screen where you can see the resistances of your allies and your enemy, though enemy ones do only get filled out as you hit them with different elements generally. But this screen can also do things like tell you if a monster is enraged or not, in case you are struggling to notice the difference from the visual tell of the monster having like steam and a red face. You can see what buffs or debuffs everyone has in your party as well, and how many turns are remaining on those buffs or debuffs. And if you are unsure what they actually do, you can then check them for a more detailed description of what they actually do. Of course, we don't get like full-on percentage numbers or anything to that level, but this is significantly more information than we have been able to have either in combat or out of combat in a stories game before. The last thing that I want to talk about today is the actual battle ally part of the combat system too. This is really quite fun. The allies will grow along with you as you progress the game, upgrading equipment as you go further in, which is a really nice touch. Each of them have their own unique skills that make them noticeably different from the others, even outside of their weapon or Monstie choice, and they all have unique versions of their kinship animation too. Not like fully custom things, but they have special personal flares added to them compared to the regular monster version of the kinship, which also extends to having unique double kinship animations when you kinship attack alongside them at the same time. And these are mostly just the kinship attack of the allies Monstie, but with you weaved in a little bit as well as like a bonus projectile to assist them with it, which is quite a fun bonus touch too. That does it for our first bit of advanced coverage on Monster Hunter Stories 3 then. Everyone will have a bit deeper coverage over the next couple of days as well. Today was mostly just to say, hey, we have been playing the game, we have played it a bunch, and we are having a great time. And this is what I think people should hear about this game after playing through a solid chunk of it more than once now. And exactly why I think this game really deserves your attention even more than the previous entries in the series did. I hope you've all enjoyed this. Let me know your own thoughts in the comments down below and any questions that you want answers to as well. And of course, there are lots of things that we are not able to discuss at this time. It's still quite early for the game, but anything that we are able to answer, I will try to do within our other early coverage videos for this game. As we end here, I'll also let Garangolm kinship animation play out here when I'm done talking, because it's one of my new favorite kinships in the entire series. Feel free to leave if you don't want to see it, but I felt like an intense need to share it with other people. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.